Welcome to the Lit Show. I'm Janie.
And I'm Britt.
And we are lit.
Welcome in, Coral. I am so happy to have you with us today. I'm just ecstatic and so grateful we got to have the car ride we did together and just being able to talk and have a good time and get prepared for today. So that's really awesome. You and I have known each other for 10 plus years now.
Yeah.
And you knew me when I was lost, and now we're here, which is like so surreal to me.
It's fun. I know.
I'm excited about this topic we have for you and how we asked you about it, and now you're willing to be with us today. So I'm grateful for you to be here.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to come. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. I want to open the floor up to you. You've been a nurse for
Almost 19 years. So, and I've been in just about every type of medicine. I was mainly pediatrics, but I've worked in adult oncology, peds oncology. I've done NICU, triage, ER, just about everything. So I've just pretty much devoted my whole life to medicine. I just love it, every aspect of it.
That's awesome.
That is really great. And what brought you to now you're in a new practice with functional medicine?
Yeah,
Can you explain that story?
Yeah, I have my own practice. It's called Redeeming Roots Functional Medicine. I started it, I guess I've been on this functional medicine journey for probably close to 5 years now. My mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 5 years ago, and 4 or 5 years ago. And in that time, I just, I kind of, anything that I knew about medicine was just like, okay, well, let's find the best specialist, let's dive into, getting her the best care. We found movement specialists, neurologists, just about everything that we could. And every doctor that we went to, including the specialists, they didn't give us any answers.
Right.
And I was like, this is not right. Like, I just kept on being like, well, what happened? Why in the world would this perfectly healthy woman, her whole life, just all of the sudden develop Parkinson's?
Right.
And so, and of course, every doctor, we don't have a cure for it. We don't know, we don't really know what causes it. And so I just couldn't, I just felt so unsettled with that information. And every doctor just continued to provide more medications. This medicine was for this side effect, and this medicine was for this side effect. And I wasn't unaware of that aspect of medicine, because that's kind of the way that conventional medicine is, right? You have a diagnosis, and for this diagnosis, these are your medications, and you just kind of follow a protocol.
Right.
Well, I really felt like the Lord was trying to tell me, what's like to dig deeper. And so I started to. I mean, I'm very much a person that researches everything anyways. And so I just dug deep. And so I kept on hearing the Lord tell me, go back to what I gave you. And so I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, go back to what I gave you. So I started to really look into like medicinal herbs and oils. And then I looked at biblical, scripture, and how scripture tells us, the healing process in scripture, how herbs were used and oils. And so the more I dug deep, the more I was like, okay, well, maybe this just means I need to be looking more at like natural therapies, which was a very, very foreign concept to me, because I always thought that, the holistic side of medicine was a little cuckoo. And so, in that there was also a very like thin line between, dark medicine and, like witchcraft and things like, like that kind of thing for holistic medicine. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized how divine, and how absolutely, God driven that this aspect of medicine is. It's truly about learning what threw our bodies off in the first place. God created us as these perfect creations. He desires optimal health for us. And so what threw threw this off, what threw the balance off in the first place. And so I just really dug deep into
down into the root, which is what your name is basically. Redeeming roots.
Right, to find the root cause of care. It was redeemed
for you.
Yeah, and so the more I just looked so hard for the information on my own, and I couldn't find it. So I just felt God's calling for me to go back to school. So even that was absolutely, he led that path, right? It's actually even to the school that I was going to. The lady that runs the school that I went to is a very strong Christian. And so a lot of her teachings were faith-based. And so I just felt like it was absolutely, it was what the Lord's will.
The right route. Yep.
Right. So as I started kind of applying these concepts to my mom's care and figuring out kind of like how we can, how can we heal her? I found doctors in Italy that, do a lot of, there was actually one doctor who, he actually had Parkinson's himself. And so he was a neurologist. And so a lot of his research, and they do it very differently, like overseas, like in Europe and Italy. Right. So he was from Italy. And so he found out that when he gave himself high doses of vitamin B1, which is thiamine, that a lot of his symptoms dissipated. And so then he started applying these to a lot of his clients that were coming to him with Parkinson's. And so, he realized the amount of nutrient deficiencies that were underlying causes for these patients. So I started applying it, to my mom. It's a little different, with family. You can.
What exactly is like Parkinson's? Like I know Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
So
Parkinson's. Yep.
And he's like real bad off. So
he had juvenile onset. He had early onset Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is actually a disorder where, we have cells throughout our body. We have nerve cells, skin cells, brain cells, every little, cells that, kind of develop every aspect of our body. Well, nerve cells with Parkinson's is as they're kind of, creating a new cell. One cell creates a new cell, and then a new cell, and then a new cell. Well, there is a mutation in the cell, in the protein of the cell, that kind of is flopped over, but it's truly a mutation. So as it's creating these new cells, then what happens, they're called Lewy bodies, but it's a buildup. And so they actually are unable to get the amount of dopamine that they need in their brain.
In order to stand up straight and work.
Well,
right?
To do everything. I mean, dopamine, it gives us joy. It helps our muscles move. It helps our brains work. Prevents from depression. I mean, there's so many different aspects that dopamine provides for us. You think about what stimulates dopamine. Worship music stimulates dopamine. Reading a good book, dancing,
holding a baby.
Yes, all of these good feelings, that good chemical, that good feeling chemical. So when these patients don't have dopamine, so that's and the medications that they're on, unfortunately, make them feel ill, very ill. That makes them feel worse and actually exacerbates their symptoms too, like makes the tremor worse and things like that. So we realized quickly that we needed to find something else besides just this medicine. And so, again, the more I dug into, I could talk about Parkinson's all day long because it's, one of my rabbit holes. But the more I dug into treatment for Parkinson's, we found even just little things that there's a bean. It's called a velvet bean, Mucuna purinens. It's out of South Africa, I think. And it's a natural form of dopamine. So God truly even gave us beans that that we can eat.
I want some
and that we can. And a lot of people do for like a chemical stimulant.
Can you eat a whole bean bowl?
Well, you have to boil it down and you can take the supplement for it.
How do you take it? Like
it's like a supplement, like a vitamin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like mashed up, that bean is in that supplement.
Yeah, so most of the time they're like dehydrated down and then they put it in a little capsule. But
is it in our powder?
No, it's not. It's not in our collagen. No.
I wish. The collagen we have is good though.
Yeah, I do love our collagen.
Yeah.
We can add a link to that.
I want you to drink some too. It's good.
Yeah. But so,
And I want some beans.
Yeah,
Some
we need to
beans.
look this up.
I think there's a supplement for just about everything, which is also so cool to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, like just knowing that God gave us everything that our body needs. It comes to me most often.
That's a vegetable.
Yeah, like everything comes from a plant or food.
Yeah.
And so when we actually truly go back to what God gave us, the food, and to nourish our bodies the right way with the food that we need. And when our food is not providing that nourishment, and there's supplements that are all natural supplements that can do that for us too. So that's kind of how I got into functional medicine. Started my own practice. I had a lot of people coming to me asking me if I would help them or with their things, and I was like, well, after I went to this school really just to help my mom. It ended up being a completely different path that the Lord had, given me a vision for. And so now, so now.
So how is your mom?
She's doing good. She's such a strong woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's, she has not had to increase her medicine, which with Parkinson's, she is on a low amount of dopamine and carbidopa, or L-dopa and carbidopa, but so she does take a small amount of that, but she's not having to increase her medicine, and the amount of time that she's been on. Yeah. So we still have work to do for sure, but she's doing good.
That's so good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's so wild when I'm seeing you in the past and how far she's come just talking with you, and how sad you were about it. And now you're here.
Well, I mean, this, God uses all of our circumstances if we allow him to, for his glory.
Yeah.
What is some of the things that people go to you about that's common?
Mostly I do a lot of gut health. I do a lot of hormone balancing. I have a lot of women that come to me saying, I just don't know what else to do. I've been, I don't feel like myself. I feel like something's wrong.
Right.
But every doctor I go to tells me that I'm fine. And so we do a lot of that, which most of the time that ends up being some significant health issues when we kind of dig down and deep. I'm very much a numbers person, so I love my labs. I get probably way too excited when I get my clients' labs back. They all make fun of me. I'm like, yay!
Yeah.
So I get very excited. It's like a kind of like a piece to the puzzle. And so I love to be able to look at somebody's labs and truly see what's going on inside their body.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get mine back. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I want to get mine.
Yeah, it's fun. So I'm staying pretty busy, which is a huge blessing.
Yes.
I've already gotten rid of all my cards you gave me to give out.
Good.
Because I can't help but to talk about this.
Yeah.
This is huge. And my clients are like, can I have her name and number? And I'm like, I got a card.
I'll
She
give
gave
you
me
some
an envelope
more.
of cards, and I had to tell her
Yeah.
on my way here, can you bring me some more cards?
I did.
Because
Yeah.
such an awesome thing.
Yeah. So, and it's done very well, but I'm super humbled about the work God's doing in my clients. I make sure to be very purposeful about praying over each individual client. And I really only will take them if I feel true peace that the Lord wants me to work with them, and that it's somebody that he's led to me.
Yeah.
So I take no credit at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's truly fun to see the great results of losing weight and skin conditions going away and depression being lifted and things like that. It's joyful work that it's been fun to do.
You were telling me on the way here, you were talking about a patient, and they were like, I'm cured. And you were like, what?
Yeah, I
and
do.
You don't even
it's
know.
It's funny because I do.
Not even...
Yeah, a lot of time, I do know that, I have confidence in my in the work, that I'm doing. And but I still get surprised, in a joyful celebration with each, little thing that is revealed, if somebody's chronic psoriasis has, been cleared up, something that they've had for 20 years,
right.
Things like that, that I just get so excited, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, or like somebody messaged me the other day and they're like, I'm in a size 10 pants and I haven't been in like 15 years.
Oh, that's so good.
Things like that, I'm just so, I'm just so grateful and so humbled to be able to do this work. Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
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 But
you want to go into some questions here?
well,
Let's
yeah.
see.
So I, when we talked about feeling led to talk about trauma, and kind of how trauma affects our life and our health, and how that's a huge, like burden for so many people. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the topic
brought us here.
Yeah.
Can you explain how trauma impacts our health over the long term?
Yeah. So, so it's kind of, there's two different points here, aspects of this, right? Like we have what scripture tells us and then we have what science tells us. And to me, the cool part is when they cross over and you can see that it's ordained, that science is ordained and it's truly what, how the Lord created it to be. And for our bodies, right? For how he created our bodies to be.
Right.
And so, whether it's just like a one-time event, right? Because people think of trauma, it's like a very obviously awful situation, or it's somehow affected them in a significant way, in a bad way, right? So if we look at what science tells us, and there's many research studies that go into this, including a very large one from the CDC, that people who there's a study called survey called the ACE study.
Yeah.
Or ACE survey. And so what that is it scores you on childhood trauma. So you would have, several different things are on the list, whether it's being physically, emotionally, sexually abused as a child. You would score higher for each one of those, on the test.
AC,
the ACE test.
And it's just like questions?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there aren't very many questions on there, but it's significant things that would happen, right? Like things
like
that you would truly, things that you would truly say this is a traumatic experience for this child. Okay.
Wow.
So, and some of them are not huge things, but still affect them in a bad way. And so, if you look at those studies, the ACE study actually showed that if you scored 2 or higher, that you were more likely to have some sort of chronic illness in your life. That whether it's heart disease, an autoimmune disease, there's obesity, depression, things like that, some sort of, to develop an addiction.
Yeah, habits and addictions,
Yeah. So so science tells us that this is the case, right? That these people who have had a traumatic experience in their life, that it will truly affect them physically. Now, we know that trauma from science, right? Trauma, people who have had traumatic experiences, they have a higher risk, or almost always have some sort of inflammation in their body. So chronic inflammation. So, throughout their life, you'll, they will have just a higher state. Like there were actual studies that showed, and I wrote it down, but there were studies that showed that people who had trauma and inflammation actually had elevated inflammatory markers in their blood test.
That is wild.
That is crazy.
And even studies too that showed that some of these people, and a lot of these people actually had a 20-year life, like 20 years taken off of their life expectancy because of trauma.
Yeah.
So we know for sure that trauma absolutely affects our health, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, there's proof, right? And then, and then we know too in scripture, going back to, there's different one verse I think I wrote down was in Proverbs 17:22, how a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right. And so if you look at that scripture and what that verse is telling us is that a cheerful heart is good medicine, right? The Lord will absolutely
created us for that.
Yeah. He created us to be joyful and to worship Him and to glorify Him. But when we have these aspects in our life, if we are not healed from them, right? If we
can't
don't
experience that.
We can't experience that, and it prevents us from truly being close to the Lord.
Yeah.
Oh wow, what an eye opener.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like for everyone that's watching that's had trauma, just being happy and like forgiving and just like not forgetting it, but just I guess overcoming it.
Right.
That's what we use a lot. Man, that just blows my mind because this is I'm highlighting that verse in my Bible.
Well, and think about too, God didn't create our bodies to be separate spiritually, mentally, and physically. Like we are like
or
one,
broken.
Right, or broken, but we are one whole being.
Yes.
Our systems work together. Our brain works with our gut works with our brain. Like our bodies are truly created to be one whole being, one machine, not these individual parts. So when you think about it like that, you truly start to realize, if that's the case, then there really is like a mind, spiritual, body connection, right? So our mental, our emotional, spiritual health, absolutely. Why would it not affect our physical health?
Exactly.
So think about it.
We don't think about how God has created every single cell in our being in this way.
Yes.
Our brains won't allow us to. Most
people I think have also been taught their whole life, even in conventional medicine. That's why when you have a stomach issue, you go to a GI doctor. When you have a brain issue, you go to a neurologist, right? But truly, they all work together as one whole machine, And so when one thing's off balance, a lot of times something else is off balance too.